Oh, yes, it's raining night. Oh, what a night. Oh, what a night. Oh, yes, it's raining.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Dana Dorsey, and welcome to Ladies' Night. We will be talking all things politics about what is going to happen in this next 4 years and what should we expect as a Black community. Ladies, let's introduce our STEAM panel this evening. I'll start with Tiffany Lofton. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, ma'am. What a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Tiffany Dina Lofton. I currently reside in Atlanta, Georgia, but I am standing in Los Angeles, California. I currently serve as the senior campaign lead for the flight attendants at Delta Airlines, who are forming a union, all 28,000 of them. So I manage both Atlanta and Los Angeles airports. I've been a labor union organizer for the last 12 years, and for the last 14 years have been a major organizer for affordable and accessible higher education, one of the founders of the campaign to cancel student loan debt across the country. I've been an electoral organizing advocate for basically my first year of college and since I was able to vote. And I run a podcast called How We Get Free. So I'm really happy to be here.
Woo-hoo, welcome, Crystal.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Crystal Wilson. I am a librarian by trade, by day, because I am so passionate about literacy, the ability to read, write, and think critically. I am also the Secretary of Information for the Black Liberation Movement, and I am located in Senatobia, Mississippi, Northwest Mississippi, right up in the corner. I also am the Chief of Staff for the Southern region of the Elmer Geronimo Gun Club, and I am
Woo-hoo.
the founder and director of Ashe Academy, where we teach our children African based and who they are and what they need to do to create a future that's conducive to our survival.
Yes, thank you. Welcome. Catherine, affectionately known as Kat.
Yes, thank you so much. So happy to be here. My name is Catherine, and yes, you can call me Kat. I am the National Chief of Staff for the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Pistol and Rifle Gun Club, going into our fifth year. I will keep it simple. Thank you all.
All right. Welcome, Kat. Bonnie.
Hi, how are you? Shavana Newsom. Sorry, it's been a long day, ladies. Shavana Newsom.
We
I'm the
understand.
co-founder of, thank you. I'm the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Greater New York, Black Opportunities. I sit on the board of our school, Wildflower Charter School, and just an overall Black revolutionary. Thank you for having me tonight.
Welcome. We have another person that's coming in right now, and you're right on time. Friday Jones, please introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, Friday Jones from Los Angeles. I'm the president of the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants, co-founding original member for Coalition for a Just and Equitable California. I'm also the vice chair of the Los Angeles Reparations Advisory Commission. Hey everybody.
Welcome, welcome. Welcome, everybody. It's ladies' night, so I'm going to give you ladies some questions. As we move into this next part of what's going on, as you know, and everyone's aware of, Donald Trump is now our president elect. And as Black people moving into this next phase, we want to know what's in it for us. How will we be affected? So I'm going to go ahead and give you some questions. Anyone can answer. We'll try not to talk over each other, and we'll see. Let's see what answers we have for Black America. The first question is, how do you foresee the potential policies of a second Trump administration impacting Black communities? And what steps can Black Americans take to protect and advocate for their interests? Anyone can answer this question, but I'll just ask that we don't talk over each other. But hop in.
I'm hopping because like women, we're so polite. We're like, yeah, we want to hear from her and hear from her.
I
But
know, I know. We don't want
I
to talk
know,
over
right?
each other. I get it. I get it. Bonnie,
I
go
feel
ahead
like we want.
and go at it. Go try to answer that
It's
question, Bonnie,
it's
please.
so much black girl magic. Well, having lived through the last Donald Trump experience, right? The last 4 years of his 4 years of MAGA reign, we were able to get 7 pieces of legislation passed through that time. Black people realized that white supremacy was in their face, so it forced them to advocate. It forced them to unify as a whole. I see this as a new opportunity for Black unity. I feel like there's no laws in this nation. If we really wanted to stop and we really wanted to come together, that we will allow to pass. So I'm hopeful on Black people. I know this whole sentiment is going around, especially with us, with Black women. We tired. I get it. We all have that Fannie Lou Hamer in us, right? But after we reset, because Black women do deserve rest, after we reset, it's time to get together with like minded individuals. It's time to organize in our community, and it's time to put ourselves first. Because as we've seen with this election, every other race thought of themselves. Every population and marginalized group are not thought of themselves. I think that this is a huge opportunity for Black people to get stuff done.
Great. Does
I agree.
anybody else want to answer this specific question? Sorry about that, Crystal.
No, you can. I agree. Because I was reading through a library journal, which is some of the professional literature, and in the editorial, the writer was speaking to this very issue. She was speaking about some of the Trump policies that will be dangerous to the library world, and how these librarians have galvanized and politicized their position. And so I've been saying that for some time, that we have to come together, we have to unite, and we have to politicize our blackness so that we can make some demands and we can prioritize and we can reset and look at our community as a collective, as a whole, not just as the black middle class or the black working class, but we have to come together as a community, put our differences aside. Of course, we have some differences, but we have to have a foundation of unity and move forward and work and look at what we need as a collective and not just as a group in this category or that category. So it's a great time for us to do that right now.
Can
Anyone
I jump
else?
in? I was going to jump in
Sure.
quickly
Jump right
and just
in.
say, yes. And so I think with this Trump presidency, we're going to have to find common ground, what we can agree on, and work there. Like immigration is a big problem, and that's affecting the Black community. What is something that we could do regarding the immigration policy to make it work for ourselves? That's one major thing that I think that we could do with this presidency.
Anyone else?
So I wanted to jump in here too, and I'm really so just happy to be here with all of you. We all have worked together in the past, and it's nice to be able to commune with you, even though we're not in the same physical space with each other. The Trump presidency, I think we have a couple of avenues. And I don't know whether people like or don't like Elon Musk. I mean, it's interesting seeing pictures of him with Vivek and what's his name, Mike Johnson, as a reparationist is just an interesting assortment of essentially white men. I'm going to put Vivek there, even though he was told otherwise by oh, what is her name? Ann Coulter. But putting that to the side for a minute, Black men, I think, have an opportunity to really stand up with the Trump administration. I think the last election, he maybe had 6 percentage points in terms of like a Black electorate. This time around, he had 21 percentage points. So that's a significant jump. And I think that in this particular time and with this particular administration, I do think that Black men have the ability to go to that administration and say, "Hey, we got you in here, and this is what we need from our community." some of what the Trump administration is proposing with regards to the education system. I think Elon Musk posted something like 765% of the cost, which is a ridiculous amount, right? Things should be 100%, but um, the increases in terms of what education costs in America is largely not the cost to cover students and whatever student needs are. It's not the cost of teachers. It's the cost of these unified school districts and the administrators in these positions. And for us, coming out of the Civil War, the one thing that we wanted at that time was to educate our own children, because we had this relationship with white America where we saw that our children were not safe. I think that on the education issue, I think we have an opportunity here. And I'm not talking about just vouchers. There was a lot of homeschooling during COVID. I think our children did better during that period of time, even though they weren't in the public school systems. But we have an opportunity to re engineer education. I don't agree with the idea of getting rid of the Department of Education, but I do think that that is an area where we have an inroad. And I also think that we have an opportunity with technology. Technology has been heavily invested. There are government sponsored and corporate sponsored learning farms in India. There are government sponsored and learning farms in foreign countries, and we have people in the Mississippi Delta. We have people in Alabama. We have people in rural America where the John Deere um, tractor has taken over manual labor in a way that we have an underdeveloped opportunity to get Black men in particular and our Black women and families made whole through the tech industry and creating pipelines to those industries, to those tech industries through the rural South. And so those are areas that I think almost immediately, a Trump administration would be open to hear dialogue, because those are the areas that they think the Democrats in particular have done poorly with over the course of time.
Thank you for that, Friday. Tiffany, did you want to jump in there?
I do. Let me repeat myself and just say it's such a pleasure to be here. I'm going to echo what my sisters have already said. I think, we have these conversations at the dinner table and we have them on in our social channels, but it's so refreshing and so grounding and safe to do it with sisters, because this is where we you know, tap into our imagination to create a world in which we want to live in. And in times where he is the president elect, this is an important time for us to brainstorm what we're going to do. So I appreciate the sharing of new knowledge in this space. I'm going to say just two quick things. One is to honor your question about policy. Um, I think if we had a serious conversation about what policies Donald Trump was successful at passing when he was president, we would find that the list wasn't that long.
Right.
Um, and it's not. It wasn't that long. What's different about his last term and what's to now is that we now have a supermajority that is also Republican, that has endorsed many of the agenda items that Donald Trump foolishly said while he was running for office. Um, and we are now watching not just the beginning of his second term now. We are now watching and feeling the impacts. A lot of our people in our community are now starting to understand the connections of his first term 8 years ago to what is happening now. When we look at I now live in Atlanta, Georgia, when we are looking at Black women who are dying on hospital beds because of policies that were enacted because judges made decisions when Donald Trump was the president, we are now watching the implications of that now. And so, I'm not a big, I'm an organizer. I'm not a big advocate for scaring people into action. I think one of the reasons why the Democrats lost is because they ran on this whole fear campaign of Donald Trump and Project 2025. But I will say that that whole plan has been really serious, right? When we've seen judges and we've seen elected officials and we have seen policies on the statewide level advance um, during Biden's administration, I think now we're going to look at phase two of what Donald Trump's presidency was. And he has already started to show us that he has appointed presidential appointees who are not qualified, who are rich, who endorsed his campaign, and who, in my opinion, are not prepared to lead the divisions and the agencies that he has appointed them to. Black people first, and it's always us, are going to feel the implications of that now and in another 4 years, no matter who becomes the president after this. So I think that we need to be really concerned, not just with policy, but with how Donald Trump is playing chess. He is putting people in different positions to make decisions about how we experience our everyday lives. And so I'm so happy this conversation is about how do we navigate the next 4 years. And let's have Black women talk about politics, because politics is personal. And we're about to experience the connection of his first term and now his second term, and how that impacts our communities and our people directly, particularly Black women, right? Which is why we showed up so big and so bad in this last election. The second thing I'll say is, I don't have a complete analysis yet. As Vonnie said, I'm resting. I'm trying to rest. I'm working right now on my campaign to organize 28,000 flight attendants at Delta Airlines before the inauguration, because we want to file our cards to the National Mediation Board before Donald Trump gets into his role. And we have to do that quickly. So we got like 8 weeks left. So in the middle of me working and resting, I'm also just processing and trying to make space, as Bell Hooks might say, or as my mentor Cortland Cox of SNCC might say, we need to imagine more. We need to create more spaces where we have the freedom to imagine. And as Friday said, as they are destroying, well, maybe you didn't say this, sis, so forgive me for paraphrasing it, but as they are destroying things, because they might destroy the Department of Education. I don't know if they will, but they might destroy the Department of Education. As they start to destroy the very systems that I have been advocating my whole life to tear down and to burn to the ground, right? We have to be prepared as a Black community on what we want to replace those systems with and who
Right.
we want to replace them with. We don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time, but we do need to start brainstorming. What are we going to do in replace of that? And I am cautiously optimistic, but a little concerned that our people are, especially, as someone who, my father and my uncle and my aunt just passed away. So my family is dealing with a lot on a day-to-day basis. So my people do not have the capacity to dream. They're trying to figure out how they're going to figure it out tomorrow, right? But our job, I think, as leaders and as voices on this panel, is to make the space so people know this is a designated time for us to imagine what we want to do once they start to destroy our systems and once we start to experience that violence. And I have been a fan of the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Gun Club for years, and what you all do to help people, particularly our Black folks, practice defense. And in a world in this next 4 years that we have to live in, where violence is going to be so prevalent, the first thing we need to do is build more righteous organizations and teach people how to protect themselves and resist the violence that we're about to experience.
But I'm going to go ahead and pose this next question to all of you. In light of the challenges we've seen during the first Trump administration, besides a federal reparations bill, what do you think will be the most important areas of focus for Black women, both in terms of political activism, community building, and moving forward? And anybody can go ahead and jump in. I'll just ask that we don't speak over each other. Crystal, I'll go to you first.
Okay. um, let's see. That's a loaded question because it was a lot in there.
It
Yeah.
was, and I could restate it if you need me to, or
Can
we
you
could break
please?
it down in
I
pieces.
was just gonna answer
Yes.
one part of it, but I want to be clear on my answer.
Okay.
Okay.
In light of the challenges we've seen during the first Trump administration, besides a federal reparations bill, what do you think would be the most important areas of focus for Black women, both in terms of political activism and a community building and moving forward?
Okay. I think it has been said, but galvanizing our community, uniting our community. Uh, I think we forget about that sometimes because as someone who's always out there trying to reach our children, I think that I sometimes forget that, hey, I got to include everybody. So this is a great opportunity for us to use our collective voices. Um, one thing I've been really trying to focus on now is if if they do get rid of the Department of Education, we'll know that that'll be handed down to the state on the state level, I assume. And just a student of history, I know that when these things are done, that we are the first that will be losing our positions and jobs. That I mean, that just happened during Brown versus Board of Education. All we had to do is look back and see who was the most affected with that decision, with desegregation. And so I agree with Sister Friday, Sister Tiffany of educating our own children. This is a great opportunity for us to take control of our education. Remember when we were complaining and crying about CRT? Well, look, if we control our education, that's a given. And we can teach our children from our perspective, from our experiences, and again, create a world that's conducive for our survival. It's about our survival now. It's about us coming together, using our voice. I just keep saying that because we talk about black girl magic, we talk about the black woman is God. Well, we got it, and we can change the world, we can change the dynamic. They do need us. There's a visual that's circulating social media with black women sitting on the rooftop watching the world burn. Or it's and I think it's a vision of what we're going to be doing as black women. We're tired. Like Sister Bonnie said, we're tired and we need to take a breather and just relax. But we also need to regroup and realize that we can have when we come together, and there's no stopping us. I mean, all we have to do is look back at our past. And I told people, this is why I study our stories so much. This is why I read so much, because when we realize and understand the shoulders of the people that we stand on, I'm in Mississippi. So, we have Fannie Lou Hamer. We have Ida B. Wells. We have Gloris Noel Bates, and the list goes on. When I was researching the project for Women's History Month, I was focused on Black Mississippi women. I was floored by some of the work that our ancestors and our elders have done, not just in education, but in politics, civic development. Fannie Lou Hamer, she had the farms that she was organizing. She was on it, and we just have to study these people. I was looking at Barbara Jordan's history. I mean, there's so many people that when we go back and we take what worked and we tweak what didn't, we can move these mountains. We can create that future. We can galvanize, and we can do this thing. I'm just excited. Y'all getting me fired up just with the conversation, because I'm always trying to think and always trying to figure out how to get us right here in my community together so that we
Yes.
can start making the changes that we want to see. We complain so much. Well, now is the time to put our heads together and start working. Like Sister Tiffany said, we got to put our heads together. We got to start moving. Even though we're dealing with our day to day again, we still have to start moving. I have a granddaughter that lives with me, and I think about her future all the time. I think about my three children's future too, two daughters. So we got to reach that younger generation as well, get them fired up, and make them understand, hey, what a Trump presidency is going to do for their future as well, and work from there. I'm gonna yield.
Thank you, Crystal, for that. Thank you. I'm a huge proponent of saying the blueprint has been created. We just need to follow it.
Exactly.
Vonnie, did you want to take a chance at
Absolutely.
that question?
Like you, don't be stealing my line. I was going to absolutely say the blueprint is out there.
Hey, good.
Um,
Great minds think alike.
right on. We actually came up with the Black Agenda, and Elmer Geronimo Pratt, National Reparations League, Cornel West, and some other Black folks, brilliant minds. I'm talking about from Gen Alpha all the way to baby boomers. They put in their part for this like 43-point pieces of legislation, and the DNC, I'll be honest with you, they absolutely ignored it. It was given to their higher ups. It was not on their agenda. And I think we need to prioritize, and I believe the question was about reparations. And just so you know, reparations was first on that list. There are other things that we need to get done, and we need to stick to these policies. We need to pick out which ones are most important to us, and we need to lobby. We need to put our money where our mouths are, because we see that other marginalized groups, from queer folks to religious organizations, what they did was they bought politicians. I mean, black people have something very unique passed down to us, right? Because let's be real, everyone hates an angry Negro. Black people, we need to show up outside. When we don't get what we want and the justice that we deserve and our God given promise, we have to take action. So that means making the politicians, especially because everyone loves talking about local politics. So all these people that we endorse, that we go out, we vote for, we help get elected, we need to hold them to the fire. So that's absolutely what I believe about policy change, because it was effective during the first Donald Trump administration. Secondly, during that first Trump administration, we opened up our own Montessori school. So we have a school that is from pre-K to fifth grade, where kids are receiving a $55,000 education, where they're not trained to fall in line with white supremacy, where they're trained to be free thinkers, they're trained to be beautiful, and it's weird how smart these children are. And I'm not just saying that because they're my little babies, but we all have the ability to do this in this community, and we can use this government's money to fund our education. Donald Trump is a huge proponent of charter schools. Hey, well, guess what, black folks? Let's put our schools in our communities, small schools, right? Put schools in our community and make the United States government pay for it. And we can be teaching. How can you allow the enemy to teach your child? But I think the most important thing is, right? Because we have the blueprint, as Sister Dorsey said, right? We have it. But the thing is to come together as black people as one. When we're dealing with each other, everyone wants their own internet sectionality, their own separate issue at the forefront. We need to be absolutely black first. And I know someone said it on here, we need to come together and be collective. Maybe we shouldn't even be tied to a party anymore. What if we voted as a voting bloc? We see that we are the only ones locked into this shackle relationship with the DNC, but we see other groups. We see the Jewish brothers and sisters. We see this group. Now we're seeing it happening with the Latinos as they grow in numbers. They are voting for who does what's best for them, and then you mobilize to get them out of office. But and this is going to sound cliche, it takes for black people to love each other first. Might be slightly off topic, but it seems as if we bought into white supremacy almost, that we are anti-black towards ourselves. So if we can do away with that, if we can love each other and honor the black family and be like, no matter if I don't like Sister Tiffany, I don't like Kat, but you know what? We have a common goal. I love you, Tiffany, and Kat know I love her. But I'm giving examples because y'all names are across the street. But so what? We still have to put aside our differences, as it was already said on this call, with these beautiful, brilliant black minds. That's what's holding us back. It's not that we're not smart. It's not that we don't have the money. It's just we need to put our BS aside and be black and take care of home. And if the results and the data from this last election doesn't show us that nobody's going to save us but ourselves, then we are sadly mistaken. And we will continue to repeat the cycles of this white supremacy trap that we are smart enough to tear down.
Thank you for that, Bonnie. That was explosive. Thank you so much.
I
Friday,
get a
you
little
want to
fired
take a
up.
stab at that question?
I did. I had that question really opens up so many avenues in terms of what the question was about Black women, but I'm going to start with something simple. There's a company called Sustainable Seed Company on Amazon. This is a Black-owned company. They sell heirloom seeds. Every Black woman right now that we know should be buying one or two of these bags of seeds from these people, because it has vegetables, it has beans, it has tomatoes. You're going to get like the best of the best when it comes to seeds. And I think there's a part of us in our a female energy. There was a time when we were the herbologists, when we knew what the earth provided for us, and when we made the tinctures and the medicines to get us through. Mother Fletcher, who is one of the last survivors of Tulsa, Oklahoma, talked about how when they were fleeing Greenwood, how their grandmother knew what routes to pull up to sort of keep them together because they really had nothing as they were trying to travel to safety. And I think that at a time like this, it's important for us to make sure our houses are stored up and stocked up with some of these herbal remedies that we know, some of the things that great grandma, big mama, taught us. I think it's important for us in our homes to have that kind of thing because if something goes too far to the left, we are only going to have each other to count on. And we don't know. January 6th has happened. And to be very honest, I was very happy that the white people had a release because I could feel their energy in the air. And I said, well, at least they got to go tear up something because if they don't get to do that, what are they coming into our community with? And that's a very real thing. I think the other thing, Dana and I are graduates of something called the Los Angeles African American Women's Political Policy Institute. And so, to Vani's point, when it comes to legislation, when it comes to fundraising, when it comes to getting behind some of these candidates, we saw what happened with the CLBC in California. We saw how the advocates, the Black advocates, actually worked hard to get the legislation through the door, to the floor, through the Senate. And we only had to get through our state assembly. And we saw that we got through two appropriations where bills go to die. And we couldn't count on our leaders to bring the legislation through the door. And so we have to be willing. It's usually Black women who mobilize voters. It's usually us kind of out there in these little community things trying to make sure the kids are registered to vote. We for some reason we got in charge of this. Let's get people registered to vote. And I think that we have an obligation after the voting is done to let people know what the candidates are doing. And that's something we need to bring our men into the fold to as well. With this last election, I don't care. They want to talk about Black men. Black men, for the most part, vote with Black women. Y'all don't get to divide this house over here. They largely vote with us. And so since we have that sway and that influence, it's important for us as, again, community, that family orientation, to sit down in community and say, well, this is what so-and-so did after we voted for them. And I think it's important for us to hold those conversations because then we can get to the accountability that Vani talked about.
You
Thank you
know,
for that, Friday.
I
I'm
just want
sorry.
to add,
Go right ahead.
Sister Friday, you reminded me because we have started actually a podcast, Tay County on Code. It's a local political show because we want to do that. We have a couple of politicians here in the city of Senatobia that we are trying to get out of their seat, and so we're going to be exposing and teaching as well because a lot of our people don't even know the process of what it the process of politics, right? They just know they need to go vote and that's it. you know, who's on the ticket? Who do I vote for? A lot of times our people ask us, who should I vote for? Because they don't know, they don't have any idea of what these people are standing for, their platforms or anything like that. And so this initiative is being led by the Black men here, and I'm very proud of them, and I'm excited about what's in store and what's on tap for our people. So yeah, getting involved and knowing what these politicians are doing and holding our politicians accountable does not make us a quote Trump supporter or a supporter of the political party. It is looking out for the best interests of our people.
Thank you for that, Crystal. Tiffany, you answered a lot of that question. So I'm gonna go ahead and hop over to Kat.
Uh, I just wanted to, because all of you ladies have said so much brilliant, and I don't think I could really put it any better. I just have a little bit to add in that. We need to form a coalition of the willing, as it were, within our own groups. There are so many different organizations that are out here doing amazing work. We need to find each other and learn how to lean on each other. We need to pull up for each other. We need to learn how to trust each other so that we can build with each other. Simply put, uh, that's basically it for me. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Kat. Ladies, we have answered questions about Trump with this presidency, uh, what's coming for us. But let's go a little bit back. Let's talk a little bit about Kamala Harris and some of possibly what we think are mistakes with that campaign and possibly why she is not our president elect. And so I'm going to ask you this question. How did Kamala Harris's identity as a Black woman impact her candidacy both positively and negatively in the eyes of voters during the election? And Tiffany, I'm going to go to you.
Why'd you come to me first? You see me laughing at this question. Oh my God. Why you come to
Well,
me first?
because you answered
What?
the previous question before I asked it, so I'm asking this question and
I was
wanting to
hoping
know
I
what
could get
your
off,
opinion
Sister
of this.
Dana. I was like, she said I don't have to answer every question. I was like, I'm gonna skip it.
Well, since I'm moderating,
Wow.
there is no getting off, but
No, no, no.
I'll
You're
take
right.
your
You're right.
answer.
No. Yes, ma'am. Let me say this. Until we have the actual numbers from the voting polls, I think it is premature to assess how her race was run. Here's a few thoughts that I do have.
Okay.
One, um, it's a thought, but I'm phrasing it as a question for people to ponder who are watching and tuning in. How challenging it must have been to be a Black woman, current vice president of the United States of America, working under a president that folks were not happy with, wanted to kick out of the race, who publicly and affirmatively said he was both a capitalist and a Zionist as
Mm,
we watched a genocide in Palestine, put his foot in the ground and say he was never going to leave the race, only to give what he had left over after being pushed out by the people to the Black woman who then had to run for only 168 days. And how challenging it must have been to, maybe, I'm hoping, because I don't know her personally, um, have to come out and separate her identity from a campaign that started over a year ago, and then try to introduce to the world whatever her vision and agenda might have been. That sounds like a very challenging and difficult task. I would have never wanted to run for president in that scenario. That's wild. Um, and I don't think that's the reason why she lost. I think white supremacy is the reason why Kamala Harris lost. I think the Democratic Party is the reason why Kamala Harris lost. But I do think that this entire scenario was extremely difficult and challenging. Um, I've worked for white men in national organizations and have disagreed with where they stand, what their policies are, how they run the organization, white men and white women, sorry, both of them. And I know how challenging and difficult that can be. And I have left those organizations for that very reason. So I think that as we talk about like what mistakes she might have made and what have happened, and so much is coming up for me in this moment about like how she might have her and her team, because it's not just her and her team might have positioned her, how her and her team placed her on social media and on podcasts and tried to use celebrities in this really big way, how the entire Democratic apparatus did not support on the ground organizations, how on the ground organizations have since fallen and fallen during the campaign because they weren't able to get the money that they needed to run the on the ground programs that they wanted to run, that engaged and touched our people. How difficult it might have been to struggle with making abortion the lead issue of the entire campaign, and how that is not probably the best thing to do for Black people who, still, even though they're not always majority religious, like that's still a spiritual issue for us. I just think that the entire thing needs to be assessed. And so those are some of my thoughts as a quick reaction of what just happened. But I honestly don't think that I think it's too soon for us to try to figure out. And I think we shouldn't get into the argument. This is not for the panel. This is for like the people who are watching in social media. We shouldn't be getting into an argument, right? About like why or how she lost. I think that's not helpful. I think what is helpful is assessing what did the DNC do wrong? And what do we do in 2026 when we have midterm elections? Because that's in 2 years. And the big question, I can't cuss here, who in the heck is going to run next, right? And how are we preparing for that moment now? Because we can't afford to let a regular Democrat run again. They're going to lose, I guarantee you. So we have to figure out how we prepare for that moment today. And that's where the imagining and the dreaming come from that I spoke about a little earlier. But there, I don't, I have been receiving messages from other Black women who did work on this campaign, who said to me, Tiffany, she ran a great campaign, leave her alone. And I've never been the person that, like, you know, gives her the pass because she's the Black woman and says she ran a great campaign. I think there are critiques that we need to make. I just think, again, it's a little too early for us to do that until we actually see the polling numbers, or the numbers from the voting polls, excuse me. So I hope that kind of answers your question. I was hoping I wasn't gonna go first. Sorry I didn't
Well,
answer it
you
the way you wanted me
did.
to.
No, it's not that there are right or wrong answers. You answered it the way that you felt that you needed to answer. There's no right or wrong answers to any of this, but by not wanting to go, you called me to you. Kat?
I guess in my view, I think that there are some things that positively helped her and negatively helped her as far as identifying as a Black woman. On the positive aspect, I think that there are elders out there. There are folks who could resonate with her identity and saw that her Blackness was a threat to white supremacy, trying to hold her back from becoming president, and so they pushed for her specifically on that. On the flip side, there are folks who, recognize that she said some pretty harmful things and done some damaging things to the Black American community. One of the most pressing things was that she talked about how she was going to do anything specifically for Black Americans when it came to reparations, and I think that's something that hurt her when she's running on a Black identity. But those are just my thoughts, simply put. I'm curious to see what the rest of the panel has to say.
Thank you for that, Kat. Vonnie?
Sister Dana,
Yes.
can I add one more
Yes,
thing? And I
yes,
don't know if it's a
you may.
question. Um,
Go right ahead.
I would wonder if we all agree that she ran as a Black woman. And I know that that's real controversial, but I'm only asking that question. Sorry, but I'm only asking. Sorry, but
We can
this is
agree
why I
that
didn't.
she ran
This
as a
is why
Black
this is not a good
woman because
question.
she ran as a Black woman. Do we agree that she is a Black woman? That's a different conversation.
Yes, that is Friday. I agree with that, Sister Friday. But
Correct.
that wasn't my question. My question was, did she run as a Black woman? You're right. I agree with you 100% on your framing. My question is, did she run that way? Because she was asked multiple times, and the opposing team asked that question multiple times. I would just venture to say, and this is the only space I would do this in. I would only venture to say, I did not hear her affirmatively say, I am
That
running as a Black woman. And I
right.
think that was, I think
Yes.
that was intentional,
I agree.
maybe to help with the
Yeah.
campaign. But I'm not trying to discount her Black womanness. Never I would do that. But I think strategically as an organizer, watching this campaign, I did not watch a Black woman run for office. I watched a vice president run for office who very much cited and explained her heritage on her mother's side and her sister, and I did not see a very affirm. I just asking the question. Bonnie is grilling me, baby. I just
No, that
That
is
because
no, that is
this
good.
is
That is
such a
good that
good
you asked
space.
that.
It's such a good space, and I feel like I'm about to blow it up.
Blow it up
I do. I'm gonna have to say the
Well,
uncomfortable
because
truth because I could
I
be
ain't vote for
Googled
her.
on PBS saying the same freaking thing. Okay. Kamala Harris exploited Black womanhood, and we ate it up, and it gave Tiffany hot sauce in her bag swag. Okay? I went to Howard, and we had some amazing Indian people who worked there. We had brilliant Indian, and I'm sorry, Kamala Harris did not present as a black person. She presented as someone trying to get elected, cosplaying as a black person. Now let's dial it back, right? No, this is not all lives matter or not, but let's talk about some facts, right? Kamala Harris was polling less than Pence. VP Pence in that position. If we had an open primary, which I feel like everyone pretended they were okay with snatching a piece of democracy away, she would have lost. She was not a good candidate. The things that she said have been harmful throughout her career. I received death threats when they picked her for VP because of my comments in the New York Times that I felt that a top cop could never be there for the black community. But we forgot that. I feel like black people at this time, we're going to get real and we're going to unify and we're going to move forward as a people. Not all skin folks are kin folks. Not all representation matter. I'm sorry, I be on my Issa stuff. I root for everyone black, but I do not root for everyone black when it is exploitive and it is damaging and it is anti-black. Kamala Harris, going back to an American issue, right? Because we're the backbone of this society. You can't sit and ask anybody to elect you when people are standing on bread lines in America. Her whole platform is geared towards the middle class, not towards the people who are struggling with inflation to fill up their shopping carts, not with the people who are making payment arrangement after payment arrangement, not after all the things that American people are going through. Well, she pulled out the fan on me. It's getting hot in here. But it's just like real talk. Americans, right? The number one issue we vote with is our pocketbook. White, black, rural, racist, revolutionary. Can we feed our families? And they did nothing to address that the last 4 years. So black people who did move over to the GOP, which I never would because they the devils, and they're proud of their racism. They were like, I'm not hearing you. I need to feed my family. And I think what the DNC did to us was absolute, as the kids now would say, would be playing in our faces. The sassy clapbacks, Megan the Stallion. You got Glorilla, who I love. That's how I get revved up on my Black Girl Magic. You got her giving political commentary. Like, this is what they really thought of us. That all we had to show them was glitter and gold and things that make the shade room, and it failed. Because when people are starving, people can see things a little bit more clearly. So no, she wasn't a black woman. And outside of her being a black woman, say if it was blind, we had blind candidates, you could not tell. She was a bad candidate for the American people, and she was a bad candidate for black people. So I said it.
You said it. You said it.
Howard person.
Come through, Howard.
I said,
lady person in the house.
I didn't even go to HBCU, but I knew that was the thing. I knew I had to go.
Right.
And you didn't have to hit you with a and shout you out from it. It's like you have to stop.
Yes. Listen.
I just want to say I'm sorry I asked the question.
No, this is the
It was coming anyway. It was coming. It was coming.
There is no right or wrong questions, answers, or anything. We are here to congregate with us. This is Ladies Night and Ladies Speak Up Friday.
And here we go. So I voted for the other Howard University candidate for vice president anyway. And Dr. Cornel West. So that's where my politics were. They were steeped in third party. Having gone to Howard, I think it's a little insulting, for us to not understand that East Indian people are in the Caribbean. They are in Jamaica. They're in Trinidad and Tobago. They're in Guyana. Part of however it is, they came from the East Indies to the West Indies. It happened. And so they are a melanated people. They are melanated people who live largely under British rule, both in the Caribbean and both in India until, East Indians got their independence from the UK. And we can accept that this is a planet with a sun. So there's a lot of melanated people from different cultures. And I think that we need to be honest with ourselves when those differences arise and be okay with what we call the diaspora. You don't have to be Black American. You really don't. But you need to own whatever your ancestry might be. And I do think, to Vonnie's point, there was some cards playing just based on melanin. And there are East Indians that are darker than I'll be on my best sunbathing, suntanning days. There are some Mexicans because they are partially from Panama. They are partially from Africa who will be darker than me on my best day. That doesn't make them less Mexican, although they may be of African descent, right? We have to stop with some of the word saladness that goes on in our politics. And you know, she wasn't the only Howard graduate that was in a race. Melina Abdullah was also in this presidential, vice presidential race. And as hard as it was with the DNC blocking, you know, Dr. Cornel West and Dr. Melina Abdullah from various ballots, the way they had to fight, the fact that they were able to be on 16 state ballots within their window of time through their fight is just as valor in terms of fight and effort as what Kamala Harris had to go through. I think she was sabotaged. I think Joe Biden not being a one-term president after he said that that's what he would be. I think the fact that during the primaries, you know, folks voted, the Democrats voted for Biden. And then once he stepped down, I think it was Pelosi who was largely behind that. Barack Obama came out front and said we should have, basically during our conference in Chicago, we should actually hold an open election. But no, what had happened was our vice president got on her telephone and she started calling delegates to whip votes for her through this process. And I think all of it was a train wreck from the Democratic Party. I think the Democratic Party, even though Kamala Harris did all of that fundraising, for you to spend production, media dollars on production instead of with Black media. To Tiffany's point, instead of getting in with these organizations, grassroots that know how to talk to us, appreciate the spin per vote, and are going to treat us with dignity, to Vonnie's point, you had shaking ass like that's what we do. Like we don't get up and go to work every day. Like we don't have husbands that get up and go to work every day. Like our kids don't go to school that's old enough to vote in high school and college. You spoke as if we didn't have anything, didn't know anything. And I think that level of disrespect we see coming through in policy from the Democratic Party. I think that last Hail Mary to Black men, like I have policy for Black men, it was too little too late. And I do also agree with Tiffany. We gotta wait because all you see still are exit polls. Because whatever they seeing that we not seeing right now, because trust me, the researchers got it. They're tabulating these states who voted, how they voted. Whatever they seeing, they don't want us to see. Otherwise, it would have been in mainstream media already. As these states are closing up their records and certifying their votes, there's something they don't want us to see because it's been slow coming. We probably won't see it until after January 20th or maybe February. And the data should be out early January at the latest. But that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, all right. I know there's some hard stops for a couple of us, but I wanted to go ahead and give Crystal an opportunity.
No, I agree with everything Sister Bonnie said. I mean, the whole race issue, she was so ambiguous about it, you know, and I think that resonated with a lot of Black people. Like, is she Black? Because that was like the whole talking point was her race, and so not policy, not anything else. Is she Black? And so you know, there are a couple of issues that you know that were brought to the forefront tonight, and I do agree. You know, we need to know. We want to look at that data to see what happened because we all have our own personal opinions and our personal assessments. But you know, I'm sure that some of them will fall in line with what's going to be revealed. Yeah.
Ms. Dana, Sister Dana,
Okay.
can I say one more thing?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Um, my thought is, after hearing my sisters, my thought is, I am, after what I said, I am not convinced. I'm not convinced that if she would have ran as a black woman, she would have won either.
No,
That's not what I'm also suggesting.
no,
So I
yeah,
want our people to think about that, right? So even though we just had that conversation about whether or not she was running as a black woman, I think that it wasn't to say, for me, it wasn't to say that her choice to run in this way, or that the team running her this way wasn't intentional. Because I think if they would have ran her as a black woman in this moment, she would not have won. And when you look at some of the states that voted for Biden and some of the states that voted for Hillary, and now the states compared to who voted for her, it's pretty consistent around where they lost and where they're going. So, especially when it comes to Hillary, because I think white men don't want women to lead the country. I will also say that I love what you said, Sister Friday, about like not allowing people to divide our community, specifically our women and our men, because it's so true. And a lot of people on the internet and a lot of people on panels and in mainstream media are looking for somebody to blame in this situation. And I want us to be uber clear that the person I am blaming is white people, right? Like I
yes,
am continuing to like I just want us to be super clear. Like I'm not blaming Latino men and women, even though Latino men, they gonna learn. I am blaming white women and white men for the institutionalization of white supremacy and power in the root of their fear of becoming the minority. That is who I am blaming in this moment. And again, I don't know if she would have ran as a black woman, if she would have won. I think that it was, like I said, that's why I said the whole thing was messed up from beginning. She didn't really have a winning start. So that's where we ended up the way that we did. We did see black folks turn out in large numbers, as we always do, because we always do the right thing at the end of the day for us and for everybody else.
and I
Okay.
want to say, because you're right, when we say we can't let them divide it, because if you just pay attention to the people around you, like I work with white women, I'm a librarian, and at the end of the day, they're going to support support their men, and I think that we need to take note of that and be with our, support our men. We got to come together because they can identify as a feminist, a liberal, whatever, but at the end of the day, hey, I gotta vote for the
Publicly.
man before I vote for the woman, right? So I think we should take note of that.
Crystal, I think I need to
Publicly.
tweet after this. Hashtag more black women librarians. That's what we need to do.
Amen.
Whoop, whoop,
Hashtag more
whoop,
black
whoop.
librarians.
All right, all right. This has been such a great discussion. I
Hey
have
Tina, can I
another
add one
question.
thing? I'm sorry
Yes,
before we
Bonnie,
wrap up.
please, please, please,
I
please.
know it's people working out of Mississippi. We do have an office, 4,400 square feet. So any activist groups that want to organize and work out of it, let's connect. Like we're available to work all together. I can't be preaching unity and not unify. Try to. So just
Right.
that.
No, no. Thank you for that, Bonnie. Thank you so much. Um, Staying in this same vein, and we're looking back a little bit at this election. My next question is, in your opinion, ladies, what were the primary barriers to voter turnout for the Democrats in the election, especially our Black voters? Because we do know, and we have heard in different conversations that us voted for President Couch.
I
Anybody
think
could take this, just jump right in.
Yeah, I think we have to Sister Tiffany's point, I think we have to wait until the final numbers come out. I have heard that in very specific areas, Georgia was a place where Black people had a lower turnout, and I think we're going to see like pockets. But I think I don't have that data point on my computer and up. I feel like we represented, was it 14% of the total electorate? If
We're about
that number,
14% of the population, so it sounds about
we're
right.
14% of the population, but I don't think we hit 20% of the electorate. I think we were at about 14% of the overall electorate. If it wasn't 14, it was less than that. But my point is, we are in a republic. We are not a democracy. It's not one person, one vote. We vote for an electoral college that is uh, the creation born also out of slavery, like most things in this country. And we don't have a mechanism to have political power in this country because we have and continue to be a numeric minority. And so conversations like this, where we are trying to figure out how to work within these white propped up institutions that continue to build white power. I'm not going to say white supremacy. That's just silliness to me. But they do create systems of white power. My thing is, in terms of how we are moving, regardless of the outcome of this race, we've got to be putting our eyes on a freedmen agency in this country. We need to push the freedmen agency to include a freedmen Congress. And that is essentially a Congress of Black people where we elect an official from each of our states that represent us, so that we can, just like the indigenous nations in this country, we can negotiate with the United States of America. We can actually have people assessing policy as policy is moving through Congress and the Senate. We can actually put out reports on how things will harm or help us. We've got to build our political power in a different way. And when it comes to that imagining and reimagining, one of the things that the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants did is we had a survey open all year. It's going to close on December 31st. And we put up about 20 policy memos, and we said, look, Black people, we trying to do this reparations thing. Help us prioritize what you want to see. Direct cash payments was a thing. Being a protected federal class was a thing. And I think that would help us with getting our own Congress of American freedmen. Having a land was a thing. This exemption from taxes, I don't know if we're going to get that, but that was a thing, as well as creating a federal agency for infrastructure. And so I think that as we, to Kat's point, try to make sure, like I said, we all have worked with each other. I think we have to build that out to a national scale, excuse me, so that when we are pushing the policy that Vonnie is talking about, we have Black organizations from Mississippi, from California, from New York, from Oklahoma, from Chicago and Illinois, from all the way down in Florida, saying, yes, we sign off on this. We've got to get our machine to be moving like that, so that white power and capitalism doesn't say, okay, nonprofits, I'm going to give you money if you sing and tap and dance to my will. Because that is another part of the equation that we don't talk about in this political stratosphere. We have a lot of nonprofits that are doing work for us: environmental harms, uh, maternal mortality, education, all of the things. We've got all of these organizations doing the things, but those organizations often can't advocate, they can't lobby, they can't do certain things, and that's by design. So we've got to create a balance where if someone else has the C4, where we all sit on a unity call, which NAASD does have once a month, but we need to really make sure that people in our communities are aware that these things are happening, so that when it's time to move, we moving. We don't need to talk too much. I don't believe in talking too much. I'd rather do than say, because then you can ask me about it after it's done.
Mhm. Well, I'm going to just jump in here real quick to just say and I hate that I have to go, but because the conversation is amazing. We have beautiful, articulate, wise women on this panel, and I'm just so lucky to be a part of it. I hope that we can do this again. I'm gonna catch y'all on the replay. I got to get back to work, but thank y'all so much, and I'll see y'all again in Circle soon. Take care.
Love you,
Thank
Kat.
you, Catherine. All right, that we're going to go ahead and wrap up our questions. And I just want to thank you ladies so much for your time, for your input. We definitely have to do this again. And you all be well and happy holidays.
Happy
Thank you so
holidays,
much.
ladies.
I needed
Thank
this call.
you.
I
Happy
appreciate
Kwanzaa.
y'all.
Happy
Black power,
Kwanzaa.
y'all.
Black power.
Black power, baby.